Alright, in this problem what we're going to do is find the inverse of f of x equals x plus 3. And the notation for the inverse of a function f is f to the negative 1 of x, and we call that f inverse. And one thing to notice is that the exponent here, or the notation of the minus 1 here, does not mean it's a negative exponent. So f to the negative 1 here does not mean 1 over f. Alright, this just means it's the inverse of the function f, and that's it. Now the steps for finding the inverse are written right down here. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to switch the x and y in f of x here, and then we're going to solve for the new y. And it's kind of nice to understand why we're doing that before we actually do it, so let's just look at a couple numbers for a second. And I'll make it a little bit more clear why we're just going to switch the x and y and then solve for y. If you had, let's say, a function f and you put into it a value of x is equal to 2, and you got out maybe an x or a y is equal to 5, and then you put that into an inverse function. Now an inverse function will undo whatever the function did. So basically, if we have an input here of 2 and an output of 5, and we take that output and use it as the input for the inverse, we're going to get the 2 back out again as the output. So what's happening between the function f and its inverse is that the x and y's are kind of switched, right? We have x is 2, y is 5, and here x is 5, y is 2. So that's just kind of a quick example with numbers of how come we're switching the x's and y's here. So this is the method for finding the inverse of a function f of x. So here we have f of x is equal to x plus 3. So what we're going to do first is replace f of x by y, just because it's easier to work with, no other reason. Y equals x plus 3. And then we're going to switch the x's and y's. So now x equals y plus 3. And then we're going to solve for y. Subtract 3 on both sides, and we get x minus 3 is equal to y. And then we're going to replace this y by inverse, because this will be the inverse function of f. And I'm going to write it on the left side instead of on the right side. So now the inverse of f, or f inverse, is equal to x minus 3. And that right there is how you get an inverse of a function. Now it's good to verify that we found the correct inverse, and we verify that by checking that f and f inverse undo each other. So if I put x into one of them and get an output and use that as the input for the other one, I should get the x back out. Alright, so let's show first of all that f of f inverse x equals x. So we start with f of x. F of x is equal to x plus 3. That's our original function. And then we want to see what f of f inverse x equals. So we replace x by f inverse, which would be x minus 3. Bring down the plus 3. And the 3's cancel out and we get x. So that one worked. And now we want to start with f inverse instead and just make sure that we also get x back this way. F inverse of x is equal to x minus 3. F inverse of f of x is equal to, and instead of x, we're going to put the original f of x, which was x plus 3. Bring down the minus 3. And 3's cancel out and we get x again. So that checks out, which means we correctly found the inverse function.